He thought he had everything: wealth, power, success. But when he visited his wife's grave, he discovered the two little faces that would change his life forever. The rain fell in steady sheets, soaking the ground around Isabella Carter's grave. Lucas Carter stood motionless, gripping the handle of his black umbrella, staring at the name etched into the cold marble. 2 years. It had been 2 years since he lost her, and yet the pain never dulled. No amount of money, business deals, or distractions could fill the void she had left. He exhaled sharply, about to turn away, when a quiet sob stopped him in his tracks. His eyes darted toward the sound. 2 small figures knelt beside the grave. A boy and a girl, no older than 4, dressed in worn-out clothes, their tiny hands pressed against the headstone. Tears streamed down their faces. Lucas's heartbeat slammed in his chest. Who were they? Why were 2 little children crying over Isabella's grave? He took a slow step forward, his voice uncertain. "Hey, kids, what are you doing here?" The little girl looked up, her big blue eyes that looked painfully familiar, locking onto his. "Mommy," she sniffled, clutching the boy's hand. "We came to see Mommy." Lucas froze. His breath caught in his throat. Mommy! His entire body tensed. That wasn't possible. Isabella didn't have children. Did she? His gaze darted between them, the soft brown curls, the shape of their tiny faces, and those eyes. His heart pounded as realization slammed into him. They looked just like her, and just like him. The little boy wiped his nose, his voice trembling. "Mommy said Daddy would find us one day." Lucas's entire world tilted. His knees nearly buckled as the truth crashed down on him. These weren't just any children. They were his. Lucas felt the world around him blur. His children? It wasn't possible. It couldn't be. He knelt down, his hands slightly trembling. What did you just say?" The little boy sniffled, looking up at him with those same piercing blue eyes. "Mommy said our daddy would come one day, that he was busy, but he loved us." Lucas's breath hitched. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. Isabella had never told him. Never. He turned to the little girl, her tiny arms wrapped around her brother protectively. "What are your names?" The girl hesitated before whispering. "Lily." The boy wiped his eyes. "And I'm Liam." Lucas swallowed the lump in his throat. Lily and Liam, his twins. The rain continued to fall, drenching them all, but Lucas didn't move. His mind was spinning, searching for answers. Isabella had been gone for 2 years. If these children were 4, that meant she had been pregnant when she left him. He clenched his jaw, his breath shaky. Why didn't she tell him? Why had she kept them a secret? His voice came out hoarse. "Where have you been living?" Lily hugged Liam tighter. We live with Miss June, Mommy's friend. She takes care of us." Lucas's hands curled into fists. A stranger was raising his children while he had been living in ignorance. Guilt, anger, heartbreak. It all crashed into him at once. He had lost years with them, years he would never get back. He looked at their small, shivering figures. They were so tiny, so fragile. And for the first time in his life, Lucas Carter, the untouchable CEO, felt completely helpless. But one thing was clear. He wasn't walking away. Not now. Not ever. Lucas took a shaky breath, trying to steady himself. His children were right in front of him, alone, cold, and waiting for answers. He had spent years believing Isabella had left without a word, never knowing she had been carrying his babies. Now, all the pain, all the confusion, it all made sense. Lily's lip quivered as she looked up at him. Are you really our daddy?" Lucas's chest tightened. How could he answer that? He had missed their first steps, their first words. He had been absent from their entire lives. Did he even deserve to be their father? But when he looked into their innocent, hopeful eyes, he knew. "Yes," he whispered, his voice raw. "I am." Liam's breath hitched, and without warning, he threw himself into Lucas's arms. Lucas's entire body froze. The little boy clung to him, his tiny hands gripping his soaked jacket. "Mommy said you'd find us. She said you loved us, even if you weren't here." Lucas's throat tightened. How had Isabella raised them to believe in him, even when he didn't know they existed? Lily still hesitated, her small frame shaking. But where have you been? The question hit him like a dagger. He had no answer, no excuse good enough. Lucas pulled back slightly, looking into her tear-filled eyes. I didn't know about you, he said honestly. If I had, his voice cracked, I never would have let you be alone. Lily looked at him for a long moment. Then slowly, she stepped forward and placed her tiny hand in his. Something inside Lucas broke. He had spent his whole life chasing power, success, control, but none of it mattered now. He had already lost Isabella. He wasn't about to lose them too. But before he could say another word, a voice from behind made his blood run cold. What the hell are you doing here? Lucas turned sharply. A woman stood at the cemetery gate, arms crossed, eyes filled with pure anger. Miss June, the woman who had been raising his children, and from the look on her face, she wasn't about to let him take them without a fight. Lucas slowly stood, shielding Lily and Liam behind him as he met Miss June's fierce gaze. The older woman marched forward, her coat soaked from the rain, her sharp eyes filled with nothing but rage. You don't get to show up here like this, she spat. Not after all this time. Lucas clenched his jaw. I didn't know. You should have known, she snapped. You should have been there, but you weren't. And now you think you can just claim them because you share DNA? Liam clutched Lucas's coat, his small hands trembling. Miss June, don't be mad. Miss June's expression softened at the boy's voice, but when she looked back at Lucas, her fury remained. I was the one who held them when they cried for their mother, she said, voice trembling. I was the one who fed them when they were hungry. And you? Where were you? Lucas's stomach twisted. She was right. But he also knew this wasn't his fault. He took a slow breath, his voice steady but firm. I didn't know Isabella was pregnant. She never told me. If she had, I would have moved heaven and earth to be here. Miss June's lips pressed into a thin line. And now that you know, what? You're going to take them? Lucas crouched down beside Lily and Liam, his voice gentle. I don't want to take you from anyone you love, he told them softly. But I do want to be your dad, if you'll let me. Lily sniffled. Does that mean we'll have a home with you? Lucas's heart clenched. Had they really spent the last few years wondering where they belonged? He cupped her tiny face. You'll have everything. A home, a family, love. You'll never be alone again. Liam looked up, hopeful. Can we still see Miss June? Lucas turned back to the older woman. If she's willing, he said sincerely. I won't take them away from someone who's cared for them. Miss June studied him carefully, searching for any sign of dishonesty. For the first time, her anger cracked. You really mean that? She whispered. Lucas nodded. I do. A heavy silence fell between them. Then slowly, Miss June exhaled. They deserve their father, she admitted. But if you hurt them, if you ever make them feel unwanted again, I swear, I will come for you. Lucas almost smiled. Understood. Miss June sighed, rubbing her forehead. Well, what are you waiting for? She gestured to the children. Take them home. Lily and Liam beamed. Lucas opened his arms, and this time both of them ran straight into them. For the first time in years, his life felt complete, and as he held his children, his family, he silently vowed one thing. He would never let them go again.